2.
We will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay. President Biden's words today to the terrorists who attacked the airport in Kabul and killed 13 Marines. But tough words, but will we do it? It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey, I'm Rob Nelson. I used to host a show on Fox, and now I do a digital live stream called That Rob Nelson Live. And my whole mission is to figure out how in this time of division we can find common ground.
Speech, and they're not allowed to do that anymore.
I understand what it's up.
They be focused on rebuilding California.
Oh, it's so true. Come on. This is where this gets real.
He says you're heading.
I wouldn't want to be black and driving in a car.
Right.
Point there, right? Some of what's in this music, you can't sanitize it. All right, guys, welcome to the show tonight. Thanks for watching and engaging and being part of it. What a devastating day for the United States. Obviously, if you're awake and paying attention to anything in the news, media, social of any kind, and if you don't know, shame on you, that there was a terrorist attack in Kabul at the airport. It killed 13 U.S. Marines, injured dozens of others, killed 60 Afghan citizens, and injured hundreds of others. And people saw this coming, right? This wasn't a shocker. President Biden was all but telegraphing it over the last week, saying, we want to get out. We want to get out. We're worried the longer we stay, the more something could happen. They had intelligence reports that there were increasing risks of a terrorist attack. And then, first they suggested Americans, be cautious, not travel to the airport. Yesterday they were literally like, don't come near the airport. They knew something was going to happen. They didn't know when. They were trying to prevent this from happening, and it happened. It's the worst case scenario. In a worst case scenario withdrawal from a worst case scenario of a 20-year war that ended in the worst case way. 20 years in a war, thousands of U.S. soldiers die, thousands injured, massive Afghani casualties, a double-decade war that ended with us doing a sloppy and hurried withdrawal, an 11-day rapid advance of the Taliban to retake the entire country as if we'd never been there, completely destroying everything we'd been trying to do in our nation-building exercise, putting tens of thousands of Afghanis' lives at risk who worked with us, cooperated with us, setting the entire nation, all the progress that had been made toward democracy, toward liberalism, toward empowering women, literally back 20 years, just like that. And then a chaotic, disastrous embankment at Hamad Karzai International Airport with U.S. troops holding the airport, trying to get U.S. citizens in, trying to get Afghanis who'd supported us, Afghanis who had permanent residence in the U.S., Afghanis who had visas, Afghanis who'd been our partners, trying to get them in, get them through, get them out in a total chaotic, disastrous mess over the last week, with the president being on vacation, coming back, giving a speech, going back on vacation, coming back, realizing, hey, this isn't good. I need to stay in the White House, focus, hunker down, be commander in chief, and let's finish this operation. A politically divisive end to a end that was not supposed to be Saigon in 73, with helicopters airlifting people off the roof of the embassy, had already looked worse than that, with people hanging on U.S. Air Force jets as they took off, big planes carrying hundreds of people, taking off with people grabbing on, chaos at the gates, and now double suicide bombers. It couldn't be any worse. It couldn't be any uglier. It couldn't be any more tragic and disheartening and embarrassing. It couldn't look any worse for us. It couldn't feel any worse. It couldn't be more heartbreaking. And you can go 13 people, 13 doesn't matter, 10, 13, 50. Every single one of those lives lost, and every Afghan life lost, but every single one of those soldiers' lives lost was unnecessary today. Every single one of them, for nothing. it couldn't be worse for us. It couldn't be better for the Taliban, a country we fought, a country that was our enemy for 20 years, who's now literally in control of the city that we gave up, surrounding our airport. We're depending on them for logistics security. They're securing the space around us, and they're a terrorist organization that's a jihadist organization that hates us. We're calling them partners. We're partnering with a terrorist organization that wants us all dead, that the minute we're gone will be burning anything American, killing anyone, they already are, who helped us, and plotting their next terrorist strike against us. Couldn't be any worse, and couldn't be any worse politically for President Biden. Not that this should be about politics, but sadly, one thing today showed me is that every single thing always becomes for us about politics. I was shocked that COVID was about politics. I'm not shocked that a war is about politics, but at this point, even this, a terrorist attack becomes about politics. I will say, I was an adult during 9/11. 9/11, for a one brief moment, we put politics aside. I remember being like, how amazing. For literally like 48 hours, we put politics away. Didn't last long before people came after Bush. Didn't last long before the finger pointing. But for a sliver, a moment in time, we actually put the politics aside. This, not even 15 minutes before people were jumping on it. Republicans going, let's impeach Biden. Time to impeach Biden. And I'm literally going, oh my God. Like, let me just go through this, and I get it. I wasn't for impeaching Trump. And I fair enough. Like Mark Meadows, the RNC, the former chief of staff to Trump, going, you wanted to impeach Trump over a phone call to the Ukraine? How about this? But the whole point is no, we don't go and try and impeach Biden. It's just pure politics, which is not to say Biden hasn't failed miserably in this process as a leader and a commander in chief. But again, no, I don't want politics. You're just playing politics, calling for his impeachment, looking right past the tragedy of what just happened. And again, the focus on what happened for a lot of people, will say, we will have time later. Excuse me. We will have time later to go back and revisit the mistakes. Absolutely. Now we're in the middle of a crisis. Now's not the time to be pointing fingers at who, what, where, when, and why. Now's the time to be solving the problem and trying to do our best and get out of this collectively as a nation. But are we? But is that what's happening? And it starts with the president of the United States. We will get everyone out. Americans and our Afghan allies, said Biden. And as for the attack, we will not forgive. We will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay. Tough words. This whole thing has been about tough words. How are you going to hunt them down and make them pay? You can't even keep it from happening when you're right there with troops on the ground. You're going to hunt them down and make them pay? After we're gone, it's like the guy who's like getting beat up in a bar and he's like walking out with his head between his, down. He's beat up. I'm going to come and get you on my terms, on my time. Really? The Taliban's shaking in their boots. Just for clarity's sake, the Taliban didn't commit this terrorist act. Cauldron 3, Biden literally handed them everything. 100% true. He handed them everything. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll set up what I think went wrong and what we should do right. But I want to, for a moment, make a point about, for those who don't know what happened. They believe a group called ISIS-K committed that. Well, ISIS-K's claimed responsibility for it. ISIS-K is an Islamic State jihadist terrorist group. So just for a quick lesson, not to dig into the weeds on it, but Al-Qaeda there was Al-Qaeda, which was a jihadist terrorist group, and Al-Qaeda is connected to the Taliban. A number of years ago, there was a split in the jihadists with the Islamic State, which is another jihadist organization. So both of them want to kill Americans and get rid of America and commit terrorist acts to do it. Had a split within the two. And believe it or not, while they both want the same outcome, they're competitors. So Al-Qaeda is kind of threatened by the ISIS-K movement, the Islamic State's terrorist organization. And therefore, the Taliban's associated with Al-Qaeda. The Taliban, who's now in control of Afghanistan, doesn't want ISIS-K to thrive. So ISIS-K wants to embarrass us and hurt us, and probably would like to embarrass the Taliban too, commits the terrorist act, takes credit for it. And we apparently have intelligence that says we know that. So they seem to think they know who did it. which raises a question I'll get to in a second. But so we're in a country, and by the way, the Taliban may not have done it. That's right. But all kinds of questions come up. The Taliban controlled the security permit to the airport. If they read it in Luke 33, who made the deadline? These are great points, you guys. I'm going to address them. Let me get through this. And just for quick sake, Trump made the deadline. I'll talk about that. Trump made the deadline, but Biden chose to keep it. And this is going to be a point I'm going to address in a minute, which is Biden keeps blaming it on the past. First of all, too bad. It's the business you took over. You're in charge now. It's your country to run. Stop blaming the past. At the same time, Biden blames the past, but said he chose to keep the deadline. He could have moved the deadline. He had every ability to move the deadline. He had every ability to say, we're not going to withdraw at all. He says and continues to say, I made the tough choice to get us out. While he points fingers back at Trump and says, Trump put me in the spot. It really makes no sense. Trump put you in the spot, but you chose to stay in the spot because it was the right thing to do. You're not going to lose any more troops. You're not going to extend the deadline. You want us out. Not a single person should die. Let me jump to that. Let me jump right to that because it's a great point, right? I mean, the whole idea that Biden, it gets so complicated. I'm going to get to why. Open systems, this was part of a controlled decline of America. The left hates this country. Yeah, this is back to that partisan thing. I don't know that the left hates this country. I know people say that, I think we lack empathy right now. I think people can't see the other side, period, I don't think the left hates America. I think the left has the ideological side of the left. Sure, some people do. I'm not going to deny that. Some do. But I think some feel America disappointed them. Disappointed, didn't live up to its values, to its ideals. So they're constantly attacking at the institutions of America across the board. That's not to say that I think they're right. And it's not to say that I don't think an element of them absolutely hates America, 100%. But it's not binary. If you're conservative, you love America. If you're left, you hate America. Both want what's good for America. I even believe Joe Biden wants what's good for America, but he's not acting like it because he's playing a political game. And the political game is what is killing us in this scenario. And I'm going to get to that. It's going to be where I'm going to take all this. But again, want to go through what's happening on the ground and why it matters. Because Biden keeps pointing back saying, I got stuck in this situation. I didn't have a choice. And the reality is he had every choice. He had a choice to not go through with it. He chose to go through with it, and he stands by his decision. He said, I never thought we should be in this war. We never should have stayed. We had to get out. Where he's wrong is when he says it had to end this way. There was nothing we could do. It was never going to be a different outcome. Crafty, can we switch our order? Can we play the Biden video right now? Before we play that, I want to just say that this was an interesting moment when President Biden in his press conference. Before we play, let me just set this up. I was watching him and I was so disappointed because, again, I think Biden has they've played this as a PR opportunity. Like, we want the best PR. We want to come out looking good. And every piece of this, the cautiousness from when it first happened, the tentativeness, the making promises we can't keep. We're going to get everyone out, including our Afghan allies, saying the right thing instead of just being transparent. I wanted us out. I didn't see this coming. We made a mistake. We didn't foresee what happened. We got backed down into a corner. We're going to try to fix it. It's my fault. It's my mistake. Not Trump set me up for this because you said Trump set you up, but actually you would have done it anyway because it was the right thing. And you say, I had every opportunity to change that. I went forward with it. But yet it wasn't our fault. The Afghans bailed out on us. They weren't, we thought they'd fight. They didn't. None of that matters. What matters is you're responsible. You got us in this situation. You chose to go through with it. You chose to be the leader and say, this is the right thing to do. And now you're having a disastrous, chaotic mess. Stop pretending. Stop saying we're going to get everybody out. We're not getting everybody out. We may not even get every American out. There are still 1,000 Americans there. And now the White House is lying, and Jen Psaki, the press secretary, well, some Americans want to stay. She keeps saying that. No, we'll get everyone out who wants to go. Some really want to stay. I can just see all the people who want to stay. I really want to stay. This is like vacation in the Caribbean. We're going to get our Afghan partners out. We're not. We're not getting them out. They are going to die a miserable, horrible death. We have given all their information that the Taliban didn't get on their own from databases and stuff in the embassy. We have given them information so that they knew which people we were trying to get out. They are literally going to kill them. They're not getting out. People with permanent visas aren't getting out. People who've been given special visas, people who are permanent legal residents aren't getting out. And some American citizens may not get out because we're leaving on August 31st. And Biden insists we're leaving on August 31st. Well, he continually insists we're going to get everyone out. And by the way, if we don't, this is another one of those sort of distorted lie statements. We're going to continue the mission. We're going to keep getting people out after we leave. We can't even get people out when we're there. How are we going to get people out when we leave? How are we going to get people out after we're gone? We can't even get them out when we're there. Americans can't get through. Our Afghan allies absolutely can't get through. The Taliban said, stay home. We're not letting any more Afghanis out, period. Don't care who you are. Don't care if you're a U.S. permanent resident. Don't care if you have a visa. You aren't leaving. We don't want our doctors, our scientists, the brightest and best to leave. You stay right the F here. We're not getting them out. Stop saying we will. Own that we won't. A leader owns failure as much as success. That stupid line, success has a million, owners, failure's an orphan. Be the leader who owns the failure. And I'm going to respect you. People fail. You didn't see it coming. Adapt on the ground and fix it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. Don't pretend you're going to accomplish what can't be accomplished. But they do, because they think if they get that press bite out enough, CNN will mimic it. Biden vowed to get everyone out. Biden vowed to get all our allies out. And if we don't, we'll get them out after. Where is the obvious reporting, seventh grader going, excuse me, how are you going to get them all out in 3 days? And you need a couple days to get our troops out, and you can't get them out now. And how are you going to go back and get them out? You're going to send in special forces to get thousands and thousands of people? We're just going to have special forces operations every other day, dropping in, pulling people out? It's a complete lie. A complete lie. Yes, open systems. It will be the largest American hostage situation. The Taliban has said the 31st is a red line. Here's to me what a real leader does. A real leader owns that mistake. And then a real leader says, that's it. We are not leaving until we get every American citizen out. You don't draw a red line for us. You were the enemy we fought. You are a terrorist organization. We went to fight you because you blew up 9/11. Well, you were harboring the person who organized the 9/11 terrorist attack. We fought you for 20 years. We are leaving. We've already basically lost, but we're leaving on our terms because we are bigger and stronger than you. And we aren't moving a thing till we get every single American citizen, every person who helped us that we want out. Which part of us can't say that? Biden doesn't want to risk any more lives. He's willing to throw America's honor away. I don't want to risk another life. And the public's behind me. The polls show it. You know what the polls would also show? That Americans believe in the integrity about our ideal. It's not a left or a right thing. I argue the left does believe in the American ideal. They think we failed it. And certainly many on the right do. So the idea that we honor our commitment, that we do what we said we're going to do, and on our terms. No, we're not leaving. No, we're not leaving till we get every single person that we promised out. Those are our terms. We are leaving. We are not going to fight this war. We are not going to try to fix your country anymore. But we are taking every one of our citizens and everyone who helped us, who put their lives on the line to keep us alive. We promised those people. Can you imagine if that was you? You literally just got screwed. Those are future terrorists. Boy, that's a campaign. Look what America did for you. Left you for us to chop to pieces. Rape and torture and kill. No, we are leaving when we get every single person out of there. Take your August 31st deadline, tear it up, and throw it in the garbage. And we are expanding. We are taking back Bagram Airport. We gave up an Air Force base. That had 5,000 terrorists locked up, and they went and unlocked the doors. By the way, I think that's where the ISIS-K guys came from. We're going to find out they were the ones in the prison among them. No, we are getting everybody out. No, we don't want to put Americans in harm's way. How many troops would be like, I'm not going to do it? I guarantee you would have lines of troops lining up to go, I will support that. I will go and get my people out. That's what I signed up to do. Firefighters ran into 9/11 to get people out. They died saving people. That's what they do. Nobody wants American soldiers to die, but they signed up. It's a voluntary military to protect the country, its honor, its ideals, its values, its commitments. They took that risk. That's why it's such a big deal. That's why service matters. That's why people don't like seeing athletes who are getting paid hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars kneeling in front of the U.S. flag, because those people made a commitment to put their lives on the line for us, our values, and for those Afghanis who stood by us. That counts. That's the thing this Trump was so bad at, throwing our allies away. And Biden was like, I'm going to restore faith in America. Well, how's everyone looking at us now? Well, you guys are a reliable partner. You turn and run. No, you stick it out. You get everybody out. And soldiers would go into harm's way to accomplish that mission. And I believe Americans, if you had a leader, would support it, said, I want us out. I don't want any more death, but I am putting our soldiers on the mission to get everyone out. We will have casualties, but we are taking everybody out. We are taking all our citizens, all the people who supported us. We are leaving with honor and dignity and honoring the values and the principles that this country is about. That's a leader. Joe Biden is a coward. I want him to be a leader. I want him to step up, but he's playing politics. And I believe Joe Biden might have it in. People are like, he doesn't. I believe he might have it in him to actually do it. But he's playing this political game. Let's make sure we get the answer right. Let's make sure it comes out. Open systems. Take that back. Let me see that, Crafty. Troops have been sent. Yep. Yeah. And that argument, anyone will be destroyed. And again, it's not about being like macho, pound your chest, right? It's about saying this is a commitment we made. Imagine, look, we went into World War II. Roosevelt got us into World War II for that very reason, to protect our allies. A lot of people didn't want to go. And I'm not saying we should stay in Afghanistan, but we should stay till everybody's out, period, and put enough troops in to do it. And then we pack up and go. That's not being a warmonger. That's having integrity and not turning and running on the. Yeah, if it was your life, your family, we're all so selfish. Imagine if everyone you know right now, every woman you know, was at risk of being raped, treated like a seventh-class citizen. Everyone who supported that government is at risk of watching them and their families be tortured, killed, imprisoned, brutally by a brutal terrorist regime. And you're running on them, and they were running on you. You'd be like, what? So no, we do stand by them. And that's the problem with what Biden's doing. And again, I'm not defending Trump. Trump made this deal. Fine. I'm not against it. I think we should. And Trump negotiated with the Taliban. I'm not for that either. But he wanted us out. Obama said he wanted us out. Trump tried to get us out. Biden said, I'm going to finish the job and get us out. Biden has said repeatedly since this happened, I stand by my decision to get us out and to not change that deadline. I don't want a single another American soldier to die. The problem is, a week before, things went wrong. Terrorists blew up suicide bombs, and now 13 soldiers have died. And who knows how many more are going to. Like, they're literally saying there are more terrorist attacks imminent. They know it. They're praying that they can get them, stop them. But it's tough when you don't control anything. The Taliban control it. And by the way, the notion that the Taliban had nothing to do with this, like, the only way to get into this airport was through the Taliban checkpoints. It seemed really good at keeping everyone out they want kept out. So how did these terrorists get through? I mean, wow, you trust that the Taliban didn't do it, but didn't let the ISIS-K do it just to make us look bad? If the Taliban did it, it would be terrible. The Taliban's kind of like, yeah, you go ahead and F with the Americans, blow people up. That's good. You say you did it, we look good. There's an old proverb. It says, I will fight. It's a Bedouin proverb. I will fight with you. I will fight with you against. I will fight with my cousin against our messing it up. Okay, forget the proverb. It's the idea that I'll fight with my brother against my cousin. I'll fight with my cousin against the stranger. To assume the Taliban's not okay with this, didn't let it happen. They control security. Let me play a quick clip from you. H.R. McMaster, who was Trump's national security advisor for like a year and a half. And the thing I'm playing him because he's not a partisan. He was highly respected, decorated as a scholar too, as a scholar, a legal scholar around war history. And since just came out with a book, has been very clear that he thinks Trump, what happened, especially at the end with the election, was just an abdication of duty, was what he called anti-leadership. So he's not a Trump supporter, but he's consistent and he basically blames Trump and Biden. But listen to this short clip.
Well, I'm just going to say it's going to get worse, right? It's going to get much worse. And what we have to remember is the Haqqani network, who used to run the Kabul attack network, is now in charge of security in Kabul. So the question is, what are we going to do now? Are we going to start being serious people again? Are we going to stop talking about we need to engage the Taliban about the future of Afghanistan and maybe instead engage Afghans other than the Taliban about the future of Afghanistan? And so the question is, can we muster the will? Will the American people demand more of their leaders, that they actually, in war, try to achieve a noble outcome rather than surrender to a terrorist organization?
And it's a real question, right? I've said before, I never thought we should have gone into Afghanistan, and I want. Yeah, Island Alert. It's true, actually. Obama was the first, right? And McMaster actually has acknowledged that in that interview. Says if you want to go back, it goes back to Obama. It goes back to Obama, who started it. Trump then negotiated a date for it. Biden picked that up, had every ability to change that date, as I said. So again, if you want to blame anyone, blame them all. They all wanted us out. Biden's using a convenient excuse of blaming Trump, while at the same time acknowledging that it paid off. In fact, I'll get to this in a second. I was really shocked by Biden at the press thing. It always bugs me when he gives a speech. You see him, he talks for a few minutes, like free verse, and it's a little, and all of a sudden he gets laser focused and he's reading the teleprompter and his voice goes up and he's like an orator. And I hate it. I hate these presidential scripted speeches. It worked in the old days. Ronald Reagan, I guess, was really good at them. But we live in an era where you can tell it's fake. I'd rather you just actually gave a speech from your head with notes and not be perfect than the scripted speech that your tons of expert team wrote for you to make sure you say everything right. But at the end, he took questions, and it was interesting to me. This is a sidebar, but I think it's a valuable one. He looks at his thing and he says, so I've got a list here and I've been instructed to ask you first. And then he goes to the NBC reporter, and I'm thinking, wow, he just completely admitted it. They handed him a list, and here's the people you call on. I'm like, you're the leader of the free world. You're the commander-in-chief, president of the United States, and they've instructed you on which reporters to call on. How about you call on whoever you want? I mean, they literally are managing that guy like there's no tomorrow. And I was just shocked. I was like, oh, my God, you literally just looked at your list and said they instructed me to call on you first. Like, here's my list, right? It was like, whoa. And the questions were like set softball questions, right? It was like, really? I'm like, you just had a terrorist attack on the U.S. and you're asking these softball questions. But it made me wonder, are the questions even vetted in advance? But then Biden said he'd take a few more questions and he went rogue. And for the first time, I popped away. I'm like, wait, good. You're actually going to let an actual dialogue happen. You're going to let people you're going to pick ask you a question. You don't know what's coming. That to me is like the first step. I was like, thank God, like you're actually going to engage in a dialogue. And it was fascinating to me because I started to actually find him like actually trying to be a leader when he got to the last question he took. And it's interesting because he points to the back of the room. I'm going to play a little clip of the question. He points to the back of the room and he says, I'm going to call on my favorite reporter. And it's so funny because it's Fox. It's Peter Ducey from Fox, who Jen Psaki will never call on. And you can see Peter doesn't even think he's going to get called on. He thinks he's pointing to somebody else. He's like, no, you. Yeah. Which I love. Like, he took the question from the one guy who's going to ask him the toughest question. Let's play the clip, Crafty.
Wait. Let me take the one question from the most interesting guy that I know in the press. That's you.
Mr. President, there had not been a U.S. service member killed in combat in Afghanistan since February of 2020. And now 12 Marines are dead. You said the buck stops with you. Do you bear any responsibility for the way that things have unfolded in the last 2 weeks?
I bear responsibility for fundamentally all that's happened. You know as well as I do that a former president made a deal with the Taliban. Remember that? I'm being serious. No, I'm asking you a question. Because before... No, wait a minute. I'm asking you a question. Is that accurate? You're not. What? The reason why there were no attacks on Americans, as you said, from the date until I came into office, was because the commitment was made by President Trump. I will be out by May 1st. In the meantime, you agree not to attack any Americans. That was the deal.
I mean, that's fascinating on so many levels. It's like the first time I've seen Biden like in like a month be like alive and real, not like scripted and reading scripted questions and taking scripted questions or whatever. And I actually found it refreshing. Like, yes, ask the Fox reporter who asked tough questions. And I didn't mind him going, no, I'm asking you. I'm asking you. Like, okay, go back and forth. Have a dialogue. We don't live in a world anymore where we can't handle people going back and forth. We can learn something from it. But on the substantive level, it was interesting. He says, yes, I take responsibility for everything, which is good, yet he doesn't. That's the problem. He says he does, but then he kind of pushes it aside. But two, what he acknowledges is there were no terrorist attacks on us because in exchange for the commitment to leave, which Trump did, in exchange for that commitment, we won't attack any U.S. troops. So he's acknowledging there were no attacks because we negotiated a deadline, which is why he's sticking to that deadline. Okay, but they just attacked U.S. troops. So the deadline doesn't apply anymore. I mean, it's a bizarre logic. I mean, my point is, again, it's like, yes, that's why there were no attacks because we were drawing down troops. That's fine. Good. We don't want any more attacks. I'm going to make the point I made before. They just blew up a bunch of soldiers and a bunch of dozens of Afghanis. The rules changed. Sorry. No, we are not letting you do that. We are not running. We are going to get our people out. Take your deadline. We're not staying. We don't care. You're not going to be nicer to us. It's almost like we're being nice to them. They're our partners. They have a self-interest. It's so warped. It's just so backwards. It's so, we have an airfield, Bagram Air Force Base. We left it. Go take it back. Don't ask the Taliban to expand the perimeter. Expand the perimeter. I swear to God, you would have so much support from the U.S., President Biden, if you literally said, you said, I'm going after him. We won't forgive. I forgive, actually. We won't forgive. We won't forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay. Well, that's ISIS-K, but it's the Taliban too. They're totally part of their shared mission. Then prove it. Prove it now. Don't leave and say we're going to deal with it later. We're going to get you later at a time of our choosing. Once we're gone, we're going to go back. We're going to make sure we get everyone out. You can't do it now. You ain't doing it later. Do it right now. Do it right now. You show me. You go up. Biden's playing politics. That's what's sad. When you play politics, you often lose. If he didn't play politics, if he played commander in chief and said, guys, this is a tough decision. I want it out. I didn't want any more loss of lives, but we're not going until we get everybody out. We're not playing by their rules anymore. Too bad. I'm putting troops back in until we get everybody out, and then we will airlift our troops out orderly, which is what we were going to do, right? The whole notion that they saw this coming, it had to happen this way, didn't. They didn't expect it to fall apart. They thought they'd get everybody out in Kabul being still controlled by the Afghan government before the Taliban took over, get everyone out in an orderly way, and then get the rest of the troops out. Didn't happen. So you put more troops back in. I swear to God, he'd shoot up in the polls. People would be like, yes, good for you. Good for you. Not because we're war hungry. Good for you that you are going and protecting American citizens and people who supported America, and you are honoring our ideals and what we're about. Not nation building. It's not about going in and building a nation. It's about protecting the people who put their lives on the line for us, right? Any movies you've seen and real life stories where soldiers literally go back to get people, put their own life at risk to leave no one behind? You leave no one behind. If he did that, I swear to God, he'd shoot up in the polls because he'd be being a leader, but he'd be taking a risk. He'd be taking a list And yes, open system is nicer to us. The appeasement approach, they won't attack. We give them what we want. And I agree. And, is it a left thing, a right thing? I mean, I'm trying to avoid the binary left-right thing. But obviously the classic story is Neville Chamberlain, World War II, Prime Minister of Britain, who said, made a peace deal with the Russians, with the Germans in Munich, came back from the deal, the Munich Accords, and said, peace for our time, peace for all time. And 2 weeks later, the Germans invaded Czechoslovakia and with a master plan to overtake all of Europe. It was a classic example of making an appeasement with a player that was not interested, was using appeasement as just grounds to move forward by time, and was never going to change their outcome. Neville Chamberlain was replaced by Winston Churchill, who was a wartime president and was actually, of the mindset of we do what it takes. We survive and win on our terms. And all I'm saying is I'm not advocating for a war in Afghanistan. I'm advocating for honoring our commitment. Put the troops back in, hold that space, take back the Air Force space, control the city, and there will be casualties till you get every single person out and then leave. I swear to God. Make it, you know what? You want to put not people in harm's way who don't want to go? Literally be like, we have a voluntary military, but we're going to let you voluntarily sign up. If you don't want in on this mission, you don't have to go. We're going to pick the troops that are ready for combat in Afghanistan and say, sign up if you want to go in and get people out. If you choose not to, we will not punish you. It's fine. You guys, men and women, make the choice. You'd have more people signing up than they know what to do with. Going, we're getting our people out. We are going and getting our citizens out. And those who don't want to, don't. No harm, no foul. You'd shoot up in the polls because you'd be being a leader. You'd be being gutsy enough to do what's right. And the problem is leadership today is no longer about what's right. It's about what looks right. It's about what sounds right. It's about polling and seeing what will sound right. It sounds right to say we're going to get everybody out, including our allies. And by the way, we're going to leave on the 31st, like we said. And if we don't get everyone out, well, they must have either wanted to stay or we'll go back and get them out later. That sounds great. It's just total BS. That's not leadership. Leadership is owning you screwed up. Leadership would be saying we don't think we can get everybody out. That would actually be leadership too. I'm choosing not to. We're not going past the deadline. I'm choosing to make a choice, and we are leaving people behind. That's a leader too. I don't agree with that choice, but that's a leader. The leader choice I want is the one I said, the other end. We're not leaving anyone behind, and we're going in to do what it takes to make that happen. Either one, you're being a leader. Biden's being like running a PR train. And they're making sure they say the same lines over and over again and hope that sticks and hope people forgive and forget and move on to the next thing. But what they won't forgive, what they won't forget is I don't care which side of the political aisle you're on. You can spin it however you want. The right can overspin it. Let's impeach him. No. You don't get impeached. You get voted out of office. And the left can spin it that he had no choice. And he should look at how strong he was with those strong words. The reality is the average person knows this is not leadership. The average person knows this is not competent leadership. Getting in a mess doesn't make you a bad leader. Owning that the mess happened, don't blame others, and then solving it and taking bold, decisive action to fix it, going against the grain, not being a follower. Oh, the polls tell me this, but being a leader, you elected me to lead. And if you don't like that in a couple of years, you can kick me out of office. That's the leadership people want. That's the leadership this country needs. That's a leadership the world's going to look to. And by the way, the absence of that leadership is what is literally empowering the Taliban and ISIS-K to go, we are embarrassing those Americans. We are hurting them. We will hurt them more. And trust me, anybody who says they're not, we've cleaned them out, there's not going to be terrorist threats is smoking crack. They are literally going to ramp up their terror efforts against us in every way, shape they can, whether it's in mainland U.S., whether it's in Europe. They're not done. They see this as an utter failure, an utter weakness, and shows how weak America is. I'm not about being like militaristic, imperialistic, but I am about standing strong for the values and ideals you believe in. If you don't like those values and ideals, if you don't think we should stand up for them, if you don't think we should stand up for freedom, if you don't think we should stand up for liberty, if you don't think we should stand up for the rights of the oppressed, which many on the left would argue, and the right we should, then don't. Then say you don't believe in those ideas. Be an isolationist. Just take care of our own whatever. There's a difference. There's something between nation building and honoring the commitments you made and being strong in the world and being like the integrity to be a beacon of hope, a bastion of democracy, of freedom, and again, of honoring the commitments you made to thousands and thousands of people who put their lives on the line to trust and believe in us. Honoring the commitment to those people as a message that would ring around the world and here at home. Thanks for watching. It's Rob Nelson Live.